Hey everyone, my name's Alexandra and I am a watercolor artist. Today we are going to be utilizing our scrap watercolor paper and painting two super cute, super simple bookmarks. Let's get started. For supplies today, you guys will need 2 cups of water, 1 for clean, 1 for dirty. For paint, I'm using Philosophy and Co's terrain palette. Paintbrushes, I have Princeton rounds, sizes 2, 6, and napkin for drying my paintbrush. And lastly, for paper, I have 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. I often cut my papers down when I'm using them, so what I did for these to make it super simple is just take scrap pieces of paper that I had from extra painting or extra paper that I had to cut down to make smaller. So if you guys are looking for something to use for your bookmarks, take a look through your scrap paper. Okay, so we are going to be painting one of ours with leaves and one of ours with flowers. So I'm going to start with our leaf bookmark, and I'm going to use my number 2 paintbrush to start, and we're going to paint sort of a eucalyptus leaf. We're going to start with it being really, really light, and we're going to just layer on top. So with my paintbrush, I am going to start by painting the branches so I know where I'm placing my leaves. I'm going to paint a couple super skinny curved lines onto my paper. And the idea is that I'm using this as a guide for where my leaves are going to go. So once I've done that, I'm going to switch to my number 6 paintbrush, and going into this really nice watered down paint, I'm just going to paint circles around each of the lines. And if you guys even want, you can paint circles kind of clustered on top. We're doing it super light, so it's in the background, which means it won't really matter where your placement is. All right, so now that we've done that, I'm gonna go back to my number 2 paintbrush, and we're just going to paint really skinny lines attaching each branch or each leaf to the branch. And you'll notice that this first layer, everything is super messy, really loose. We're going to build on top of it, so it is okay for it to look like that. Now that that's done, for the second layer, we're going to go in and paint some more defined leaves. So I'm going into my vine leaf green, mixing it with just a little bit of my balsam. And I'm going to go in and start painting leaves on top. So I'm putting the tip of my paintbrush down, applying pressure as I pull back into kind of a C curve shape. And then I'll do my main branch stemming down. So now that I've done that, we want to add our leaves on either end of it. And I'm not directly attaching my leaves to my main stem. I'm sort of staggering them on either side. And I can see that as I'm using my paintbrush, I have some of the paper showing through. So because of that, I am going to switch to my larger paintbrush just to get a little bit better coverage for these leaves. So tip of my paintbrush is down, going sort of in a C curve. And right away I can tell with my bigger paintbrush that is so much better. So I'm going to paint another leaf. I'll do it at a different angle down here. Now you guys can switch to your smaller brush, but if you're careful to use the tip of your larger paintbrush, you can still get a really nice skinny line. So I have curved it right over top of the leaves I painted before, And I'm doing this because we are layering with our leaves here, just so that our bookmark looks really full. My idea for these bookmarks is I want them to look really whimsical, very effortless, but also for it to be something super easy for you guys to use. That'll be such a nice addition, especially when you're reading, to have something that you've made that's really beautiful. All right, so now I've done one down below, one up here. I'm gonna do one up top and sort of have it looking like it's sticking out the edge of the page. So starting with my main leaf, I'm doing my stem down, and then I'll paint in 2 or 3 more leaves, and I can just cut them right off the edge of my page there. Now, if you guys want some more in-depth tutorials on how to paint leaves, I do have another watercolor tutorial that goes more into depth on how to paint a basic leaf. But the key thing that I like to tell my students is to make sure that they're not too uniform and not too stiff with their painting. All right, so just to even it out, I'm gonna do one more leaf at the bottom here and maybe one more sticking out on the left side. Didn't have quite enough water. So stem coming down, and then I'll fill in a couple more leaves. Now we're just gonna fill in our left side a little bit with just the tips of what looks like another branch. And then I could do my final one up at the top here, leaf first, tip of my paintbrushes down. I'm applying pressure as I pull back to get that really nice shape. And I often like to leave that little white space in the middle to sort of act as the vein of the leaf. Okay, so first card is done. You guys can see how easy it is to make something that is super cute. What I sometimes do is hole punch at the top, and then you can tie string in it to finish it off. Okay, so for our next one, we are gonna start exactly the same, painting those eucalyptus leaves with the really light, almost translucent kind of blue-green paint color. So I'll start by doing my guidelines. I'm just doing wavy lines all across my bookmark, and then circles all the way around, keeping everything really loose. I don't mind if my lines aren't as skinny. These are gonna sit behind everything else I paint anyways, so I don't need to be too picky with it. All right, so now that that layer of leaves is done, I'm just looking here, and I might add one more at the bottom to really fill it out. We are going to add in some flowers this time. So for our flowers, I'm gonna use my Sourwood red paint here. And I actually just want to do a mixture of different colorful flowers. So we're gonna get a nice mix. So what I'm gonna do is I'm painting 5 very small little circles. And we're just gonna do that all the way around our entire bookmark. I'm actually gonna switch to my number 2 brush here so I can get some nice detail. And we're just gonna paint 5 little ovals that sort of circle around each other. So if it's easier for you guys are more than welcome to draw a circle onto your page to start. Yeah, so sometimes I will draw a circle to start just so I have a guide for my flowers. And I'm going for a really loose, whimsical look here, so I don't mind if they're not all perfectly even. Now, like I did with the leaves, I can paint some of my flowers sort of off the edge. I'm going to do one more up here. The idea with any type of pattern that you paint is that you're spreading everything across your page relatively evenly so the color carries through. So we'll do one last one down here. And now I'm going to go in with my yellow paint. And I'm just going to dot in the middle to get the center of the flowers. Now that I've done that, we're going to paint some really small little yellow flowers all the way throughout. So I'm doing the same idea, but I'm doing a much smaller version. So now that my yellow flowers are all done, I want to add some leaves like I did with this first painting, but I'm going to do them a little bit smaller so that it matches everything else I'm doing on here. So using my small paintbrush, I'm going to do really little leaves, and we're just going to do branches all the way throughout. So just to reiterate, I'm doing the tip of my paintbrush down, I'm applying pressure as I pull back, and then I'm lifting my paintbrush off to get that really nice shape. Now I can do some of my branches with less leaves if I want. So I'm going to do one with just 3 leaves over here. And we're just going to do a few more branches, and then our second bookmark will be all done.
They had a table of airsoft last night.
All right, so the last one I'm going to put is just at the top here. Just to even out where the green is for the leaves. And now that you've done that, you guys have 2 super cute, really simple bookmarks. Thank you guys so much for following along. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button as well as subscribe to Alexandra Victoria Studio. This really helps me as I continue making tutorials. Also, I love seeing your guys' creations, so if you followed along and made a bookmark of your own, please share it with me on Instagram at Alexandra Victoria Studio. We'll see you next time.